Ooh, the natives are restless tonight.
Yeah, come here. Check it out. This is Joe Queer. He's
Hey there, young fella.
Legend. He
How
writes
you doing?
cool songs. We'll listen to some on Alexa later.
Hi there.
He likes a little bit. He knows Dingbat by Screeching Weasel, right?
Hey, that's good. That's a good song.
It's a rude word.
Yeah, he says it's a rude word.
Well, yeah, kind of is, yeah.
No, I guess do it later. I'm doing an interview.
Let me show her. Let's watch a show.
Yeah, hey, you can watch TV. See, TV, the instant fix for parents everywhere.
Love it, man.
One thing that everybody tends to say about you as a songwriter is that you've got a knack for the 3-chord song, and there's just an ease in your songwriting style that makes it sound real natural, and everything just kind of seems to come out the way it ought to. But even with your performing style, it's just kind of like breathing for you. And I don't know, has it always been that way, or did you go through a period where you're like studying songwriting on some level? Like what? And I know it's been a long time, but you know.
Yeah, no. See, I'm older than everybody else in the scene, pretty much. But also, I grew up like in the 60s. And so everything on AM radio then, you listen to AM radio and everything you'd listen to was a hit. So, you know, Happy Together by the Turtles, you know, the Rolling Stones, Nervous Breakdown, 19th Nervous Breakdown, everything was a hit. The Supremes, you know, you name it. It was just like Walk Away Renee, the Left Bank. It was just, everything was a hit song. And the Monkees and Paul Revere and the Raiders. So it was really weird. And I was really astounded when Joey Ramone, he had this song, that line, do you remember lying in bed with the covers pulled up over your head? And I told him, I said, dude, I was so astounded you wrote that, because I thought I was the only one that did it. I remember I had a little AM FM radio, and I can remember the smell of it. It was just my little transistor radio I got because I had a paper route. And I remember the smell of a 9-volt battery and stuff, and I would fall asleep with that thing with music playing, you know, and it was so catchy. And then I played trumpet for about 14 years from the time I was like, I think I started in 3rd grade right through high school. And then shortly thereafter, I finally gave it up. So I was able to be in the band, and I really liked that. And, you know, you have your 1st, 2nd, and 3rd trumpets and trombones and clarinets. And so it kind of gave me a good background of harmonies and stuff like that. And so that's kind of, you know, it all melds into, you know, the way I hear music, I guess, you know. And then when the Ramones came, I was into like David Bowie, washing dishes down at the beach, and my friends that I worked for were into David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust. So, you know, Wham Bam, thank you, man. You know, that was like the summer of 73 or 74 or something. And then, you know, then through David Bowie, I get into Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground and Mott the Hoople and T-Rex and all that stuff, and then Lou Reed. And so when the Ramones came out, it was, and the Sex Pistols and Damned, it was all kind of like made sense to me. It was the next thing. I knew something was coming. I wasn't sure what, but, you know, the Ramones thing. And so it just gets down to, those are my influences, I guess. I grew up on that stuff. And so I always liked the, back in those days on the AM radio, those 2-minute pop songs, almost all of them would fade, you know, and I thought that's my idea of heaven, you know, those songs that are just so catchy that you don't want them to die out, you know, and they fade out slowly, and you get into the next one and it fades out. So happy together, shit like that, and Daydream Believer. And so that's kind of where I come from. And I always loved those things, and I always dreamt that I would be able to write stuff that catchy. And so those were my influences. And getting to know Joey Ramone, you know, fairly well towards the end of his life, it was cool to know he had the same influence as a lot of them. You know, he was into that glam stuff, and he was a little older than me, but yet he was also into David Bowie, Alice Cooper, Killer. You know, we talked about all that stuff, and I was like kind of astounded that they were all my influences and all stuff I had grown up on. So, so that was kind of cool. But that's where it comes from, that whole 60s pop sensibility where, you know, to get into like the Ramones thing, and the pop songs would like save your life. You know, the Ramones, our life would suck at times back then, but we just looked for Ramones shows. And yeah, life sucks, but you would go to the Ramones shows, and for those 2 hours, you know, especially that hour and a half the Ramones were on stage, you had the world by the balls. You know, it was like you could forget about your late on the rent, your girlfriend hates you and she kicked you out, you lost your job, but you had the world by the balls when the Ramones were on stage, you know? And so that kind of pop sensibility, you know, where pop songs will just save the world. I think now it's true, might sound corny, but I think now it's truer than ever with this political landscape and all this bullshit going on in the world today, that you need pop songs. And so that's where it kind of comes from, that whole thing where like pop songs, you know, that's what I grew up with. And, you know, that's it all just comes out in the music, I guess. So you don't really think about it, you know, but you just sit down and write the songs and out they go.
Well, that's what's, I mean, it's always been evident in your songs that there's like a strong 60s rock influence. And it's just cool because, you know, I was born in 1980 and pop music was a big part of my life too, but in like a very different way. You know, that's the beginning of MTV and like jingles on commercials and cartoon intros and stuff. So there's still a lot of catchy music that was fed through the boob tube to us, you know, and I really absorbed a lot of that stuff, but you know, it was removed from that, you know, generation. It had its own distinct sort of vibe and stuff. So it's really fascinating to me how that gets kind of imprinted on you, like whatever you were into when you were young. It's just, it really, you know, touches your heart in some kind of way where it becomes part of your personality as an artist if you're going to make music and stuff like that, you know?
Well, yeah, you know, we're lucky, the Queers, like we were on Lookout Records, our music fit on Lookout Records. It was the stuff that we'd been writing. We had those songs written before we got on. We did Love Songs for the Retarded. We had the whole album written pretty much. And so it was lucky we were kind of like in the right time at the right place. But albums like our album Beat Off and Move Back Home, those two albums musically, I like them, but they're not my favorite at all. But it was a really magical time for the whole Lookout scene and all that stuff. So a lot of kids will come up and they're like, Move Back Home is my favorite album. And it kind of like, if you go song by song, it doesn't add up to many of the other albums, if you ask me. Not even close. But people love it because they grew up with it and it was a cool time in their life. And so it's what you're saying, you know, you just latch onto that stuff and it's kind of like the soundtrack. You know, I'm looking at it, you know, kind of critically, and everybody else is like going, I didn't give a fuck. They weren't the greatest songs. That's what I remember singing to. So we kind of got away with shit there. But
well, I think there's another aspect that people latch onto. It's that, you know, those particular albums, they felt accessible. Like if I wrote a song, maybe I could write a song like this. You know what I mean? It was like giving people permission to try to kind of go for it. And you establish some aesthetics that really like stood the test of time, you know, because, you know, your songwriting aside, like just if you listen to a Queers album, there's like a drum beat that's very distinctive to the Queers. There's a guitar playing style that's very distinctive to the Queers. And it's like been copied by many bands, you know what I mean? But it's interesting to me because, you know, punk rock always, you know, there's kind of like these cliches in the way that people approach it when they write in that style. And it just, I don't know, you guys were being yourselves. So you wrote like kind of rock and roll songs, like 60s influence and pop influence, but there's still like an undeniable like aesthetic that kind of like shines through, and maybe people don't necessarily get your songs on the level that they ought to, but you know what I mean? Like there's that bop, boop, bop, boop, bop drum beat that's like, that's the Queers beat. And then the downstrokes, but played at a tempo where it's not like carpal tunnel syndrome tempo, but it's like, it's just that steady tempo, you know what I mean? And there's something about that just really drew me in. You know, it's like, that just looks like fun. I want to play like that. And like watching you play it on stage too, it's kind of like, I think your band in a sense was very similar to the Ramones in that it made other people want to start bands. Some of the bands ended up being pretty lame, you know, but some of them are great. So it's just kind of a cool part of your legacy that you contributed that.
Yeah, we were lucky we were in the right place at the right time. But like I say, we had done our Grow Up album, and I met her at the Rat, Love, Love, Love. I Don't Want to Get Involved with You. That whole album, I really like. Boober, Ella, Squid On. I like that whole album a lot. And so yeah, getting on Lookout was kind of normal. But the other thing is, I think with bands like, say, the Muffs or Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, they're pals of mine from Boston.
Nice.
And Screeching Weasel and Green Day and the Queers and Mr. T Experience and a lot of other bands back then, we had no safety net under us. It was like either welcome to Burger King, may I take your order, ma'am, or you know, paper or plastic, ma'am, or punk rock. That's how it was. Nobody was going, it was not a career move back then. We did it because we loved the music. Billy Joe, I can speak for him, and that's how they were. You know, they were going to play music, whether they made millions or they stayed on Lookout Records, Green Day. Yeah. And we were kind of the same way. And having no safety net under you, it lends a certain immediacy and legitimacy to the music. I think a lot of bands are lacking. And then, you know, the other thing I talked to Joey about was you got to be smart, dumb, and not dumb. You know, like a lot of guys just write songs and I'm not going to, you know, single anybody out, but to me, it's the equivalent of like a guy falling off a bar stool at a bar and breaking his leg, and you're like, hey, man, you know, whatever, that's funny. You know what I mean? Whereas, you know, Pete on the brat with the baseball bat. Oh, yeah, I love that shit. Or Screeching Weasel in This Ain't Hawaii. Their fat white parents look like Maury Amsterdam. This ain't Hawaii, or whatever the line is. You know what I'm talking about. I thought that was great when I first heard it. I thought that was fucking classic. And so anyway, yeah, I guess the Ramones thing kind of hit a chord with me, and I wasn't a great guitar player. And I remember talking to Johnny, and he goes, yeah, I like Jeff Beck and Dwayne Allman and all those guys, but I'm not going to play like that. I can't play like those guys, you know? And he goes, I don't really pick up my guitar to practice. I just work on songs or get ready to build my stamina up, but I don't really practice. And I remember I heard this back in like 78, I think, when I was backstage. And it really struck a chord with me. And I go, that's who I want to be, like Johnny. I just want to pick up the guitar and work on songs and not worry about playing like Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton and shit. So,
yeah, man. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Well, I really enjoy watching you play guitar because it's like it's the tool of the trade, you know what I mean? And it does the job, and the way you play it just looks like fun to me. And I've always enjoyed your solos too, because they're just loose, but there's enough blues and rock and roll in it to really like be satisfying at the same time. You know, simple things that you do that, I don't know, it's just.
Well, that comes from like, luckily I don't play like Eddie Van Halen. I never could do like those hammer on, you know, all the technical stuff. So my solos are just kind of melodic and just, you know, real simple and melodic, and that's all I can play. So they're kind of mapped out. I don't really doodle on the guitar, you know, other than I'll make noise and doodle a little bit, but usually they're mapped out from Your Boy, Deborah Jean, you know, any of the solos on the new album, that stuff there, it's all mapped out. Anyway, but I was just not that technically proficient, so that's all I could play, and there was only one guitar player, so I had to play the lead, so that was it. So
well, there's all kinds of shredding guitar players out there, but for my money, being a good songwriter is kind of like the skill I would rather have. You know, being a songwriter is like, you know, encompasses a lot of things that make music enjoyable, and it's not always the skill of the playing that people care about. You know?
Well, you know, on our new album, I sat right down here in this chair here in the studio, and I hadn't really written, I don't know if I told this story, but I hadn't written anything really in a long time. I had a few things I had put on tape on my phone and, you know, here and there, but I hadn't really sat down because we've got so many songs we can't play all we have now. So I was just like, fuck it, I don't, you know, whatever. So with the COVID-19 thing, I was like, fuck, we have time. So I sat down in the chair right here. I forced myself to come in. I didn't want to, but it was like probably this time one night. And I forced myself to come in, and I go, I don't have one fucking idea that right here. I don't have one fucking idea. I don't have a chorus. I just got a song book with a bunch of dumb titles here, potential titles. And I said a silent prayer. I sat there and I said, Joey, if you're up there, get Dee Dee and fucking you guys throw me a bone because I have got nothing. Please. And so, you know, I just started plucking and that's how the album started. And then, so then I got one song and then I got another. And then I kind of was by myself. Hoglock came down and did the drums, and then Cheeto didn't come up. I did a lot of the bass of the album because of COVID-19, we couldn't get together. The bubonic plague was going to get us and all that bullshit. Anyway, so I was here by myself most of the time. So I started kind of like thinking, Joey had asked me to work on his solo album years ago, with him and Daniel Ray. Never did it, work on songs anyway. So, I kind of pretended I was working on a Joey solo album. And so that was the whole thing. And I was like, fucking Joey's looking over my shoulder and I got to play this good. And the song's got to be good enough to be on Joey's solo album. Yeah. And we had a bunch of stuff we threw at the wall and some made it, some didn't. But I kind of went with that whole thing like it was a Joey solo album. And I, you know, if Daniel Ray and Joe are watching me, I got to play this guitar, right? You know, and so I went with that whole thing. And the album, I got to tell you, it's as good, I think, as Don't Back Down or Love Songs. Start to finish, I like it. 15 songs. You know, I like all our albums, but Punk Rock Confidential has a dud or two. Monkey Brain has a dud or two. Pleasant Screams has a dud or two, you know? But this album, I was like, man, this one came out great, like Love Songs or Don't Back Down. I like those three albums with this new one. I love it. I was really proud of it. I'm proud of it. I think it came out great, man.
Yeah, it's got a classic sound. And man, some of those titles, when I read the song titles, I was like, how is he gonna make that work? Hong fucking Kong, you know, but it's like one of the catchiest songs on the album, you know?
That was, I was out there and I was just getting a guitar sound and I started playing three chords and again, I don't know how I came up with a chorus, which is how I usually do it. And then, oh, that's kind of cool. And I laid down a demo and, you know, just that chorus. And then I always think like when I'm making an album, I always envision the back cover of the album and the titles. And if I pick up the thing and I look at the titles, then, you know, how would it look on the album? Can I envision this song as a song title? So Hong Fucking Kong, yes. Attack of the 5-Foot Bitch, I thought that was great. Yeah. Flies over the head of a lot of people. They don't know Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, but the movie. But so that's how I did the song on Monkey Brain. I think she's starting to like me. Yeah. I wanted to make a Beach Boys type song. And I said, what is the song title I could see in the back of Pet Sounds? And I go, oh, I think she's starting to like me. No, I could see the Beach Boys doing a song on Pet Sounds or the Today album. I think she's starting to like me. And so that's where I kept that title. And kind of on our album, you know, I envisioned the back cover would those titles work. And so that's how we came up with it. Most of the album, you know, I got the chorus and I think, man, if I can get a chorus, I can back into it. And if I got a catchy chorus, usually I figure I've got a good song. So Kim Shattuck, she told me she was the other way around. She could write really catchy. To me, she wrote everything was catchy. Let's face it, right? But she said, I have a real hard time with choruses, but I'm great on verses and bridges and stuff like that. And I didn't know that. I just thought it was effortless for her. I never watched her write. I saw her doodle around a few times with ideas on tour, but it's kind of funny how, for me, it was always the chorus and I envisioned the crowd singing along and then on the back of the album, and then I go, okay, this will work. So that's how I kind of look at songs and come up with them, I think.
Yeah, I've heard some interviews with Kim where she was saying, you know, she'll go a while without writing. And then once she starts, like sometimes it'll just come out in a flood and she'll have a lot of ideas and finish a lot of songs in a short amount of time, which I thought was kind of cool. She's fascinating as a songwriter, man, like so good.
Yeah. She was really, we had this thing, I don't know if I told you this one, but Joey was going to sing a 4-song EP, The Queers, but Joey was going to sing on it.
Wow.
And we're going to get Andy Paley to produce, you know, Brian Wilson's buddy, Andy Paley from the Paley Brothers, you know, who did Let's Go and the Rock and Roll High School soundtrack. He's a big producer. So, yes, we were going to do it. And so I talked to Joey about doing a 3-part harmony song a la the Beach Boys In My Room. I said, me, you, and Kim Shattuck, you know, a slower thing, like, you know, In My Room or something like that. And he talked about at that time we had Don't Back Down out. Excuse me. And so he was talking about I Always Knew and I Can't Get Over You. The end of I Can't Get Over You. We were talking about that and the various vocal parts. And he really thought that was cool. And he just loved the idea of doing a slow 3-part with me, him, and another girl. Slow song, because he said it's, you know, always stay one step ahead of the crowd. He said people expect Blitzkrieg Bop Part 2 or whatever, and we're going to give them this really slow, poppy, beautiful pop song. And so I remember I called Kim up, and she goes, I don't know if I can write in his key, but I was like, Kim, it's Joey Ramone. We got to do this, you know. But in her defense, I did another interview. I mentioned this, but she's her own person. You know what I mean? Kim wrote with her. She, you know, she didn't need anybody else, and I don't think she ever did write much. Maybe with Lisa Marr, she wrote a couple things, but mainly Kim. You know, her songs were so great anyway. Still, it was a dream. I wish that had happened. At least one song would have been great to try to come up with something. I have no doubt we could have come up with something killer too.
Yeah.
I had a couple of ideas that I wanted to throw at her anyway. So, but I find with songwriting, if you're in the mood and you just know the song will come out good, it's going to come out good. I know it sounds crazy, but like when Ben and I were at his house, I said, hey man, I got that verse for I Want to Be Happy that Joey had sent me years ago. Let's finish the song. So I showed it to him, and oh yeah, I had showed it to him before. And so we just had the verses. That's all Joey had for that song. And 20 minutes later, you know, we're just like, I don't know what it is. I just think when I'm with Ben, I know something good's going to come out. And like 20 minutes later, we came out with the whole song. I mean, it didn't take a half an hour, and the 10 of that would have been him working on a couple of the lyrics because he wrote most of the lyrics.
That's cool.
It's weird, but you have that confidence that something's going to come out good, and it always seems to come out okay. You can't. It's like making pie dough. You know, if you go into pie dough, I used to own a restaurant.
Yeah.
The dough knows if you're like, you know, you're approaching it with trepidation. You know what I mean? You gotta like go in and show that pie dough who's boss. Same thing with the songs. You just got to go, and someone will come up with that with me and Ben. Someone will hit that one note. JJ Razzler was like that. Lisa Marr. I love to throw ideas at people, and then they'll come up with that one note that you didn't hear. I didn't hear, you know, and you're like, oh, fuck yes, it could go there, you know, and it's really fun. But I don't think there's anything funner than writing a good pop song anywhere where you look at each other and you're like, oh, dude, we nailed it, man.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. For sure, man.
JJ Razzler and I, we used to write on Grow Up. He was on that album on Summit Don't Back Down, and he had that riff for Strip Search, our instrumental off Grow Up.
Okay.
And he was playing that ba 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 A G A G F A garagey type thing, and I said no, play the rhythm like the Ramones, like and then I wrote the riff, the lead part, and it fell together. You know what I mean? It was real simple, and I was like, damn man. But I remember writing that one. We're like, damn it, we did a fucking good one, Raz. You know, so cool. Ben, he was like, you know, we kind of high-five each other, but he doesn't get too excited. He's written so many good songs. For him, it's like me. I was like, this is a great song, and Ben was like, that's cool. Yeah, I like it. It came out good, and he felt that way about Bubblegum Girl. And I kept telling him, you got to record that song. And then finally he said, yeah, you guys can do it. Go for it. So, but I get pretty excited over the good pop songs. You know, I think it's a lot of fun. Well, on our new album, 2 songs, Hong Fucking Kong. So we had that song and we written it. The guys, they'd come up, we recorded it. Cheeto did the bass, and I said to him, I go, it's not going to come out. I did the vocals, it's not going to work. They go, really? No, Hong Fucking Kong, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, there's something missing. And then one day I was driving, listening in my van. I was driving to Starbucks, and I was listening to the demo. And all of a sudden I started thinking the back vocals on that song, ooh, ba, ba, ooh, ba, ba, ooh, ba, 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 ooh. Ooh, like a nursery rhyme type thing. And I go, wait a minute. So I turned the van around. I didn't even go to Starbucks. I fucking came in here and I started singing the thing, and I go, oh fuck, that'll work. And then all of a sudden that song became really fucking great. I thought, I was like, damn, and it's all from the back vocals. Now another song, If I Had a Girl Like You, I wanted to do like a 60s, something I would hear on the radio in 1966 or something, you know, or whenever I started listening, you know, 67. And so the song, we did it, and I remember showing Cheeto, and he was like, yeah, it's okay. But then we started adding the back vocals on it. And then all of a sudden, we re-recorded it. Hogla came down again, and we threw it together. But it was all due to the back vocals. If you take the back vocals out of Hong Fucking Kong, it sucks. If you take the back vocals out of If I Had a Girl Like You, mediocre, it sucks. The back vocals make it. And we didn't have it when we first recorded it, but the song kind of segued into those arrangements. So both those songs, I was really surprised at both. I thought they were going to suck and we wouldn't even use them on the album, but they're two of my favorites.
Yeah.
So it's funny how stuff on this album, because of COVID, we had usually we go in and we record an album in 8 days at Sonic Iguana and we're done. But this time we had no deadline. So we were able to take a few months and listen to the song, and it kind of evolved. And then, you know, sure enough, I'll be driving down the street listening to the demo where it was rough mix, you know what I mean, where the song was at that point, and then I'll hear another harmony on Shirley Needs a Dildo or Cheeto and a Speedo. All of a sudden I was like, oh fuck, Ooga Chaka on the outro, Ooga Chaka, Ooga Chaka, Ooga 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 Chaka, and I go, fuck, that's great, man, let's do that. So it all evolved, and it was because we had time. And if we were doing the album in a week, it wouldn't have worked like that. But it all fell together. There's still a couple of harmonies. There's one on the outro of If I Had a Girl Like You that Dan forgot to mix in that we did record. And then there's a harmony on Shirley Needs a Dildo that I came up with after the album was done. And it's driving me nuts that the part wasn't on there. But it's like, oh, man. But anyway, a lot of the album came in. The songs are there, but it's how you flesh them out with the back vocals and the keys and the hand claps and, you know, lead guitar and all that stuff that I think makes our new album and makes a lot of songs. And that's where the genius, I guess, comes in, where what separates the men from the boys. A lot of these pop punk bands these days, they don't, you know, the bass player's back there singing "fuck you" or something on the chorus, but they're not doing the vocals and the cool vocals and all that stuff. And that's what I get from the whole 60s sensibility, I think. Turtles and Monkeys and, you know, Paul Revere and the Raiders and all Stones and Beatles and all that shit. So I was lucky I grew up then, and also lucky I was in the band. And so all those influences play a part of it. But yeah, the back vocals and all that stuff, it's funny where you think a song will suck. I thought If I Had a Girl Like You was never going to make the album. And all of a sudden, it's like one of my favorites. So it's funny. You never know. So
those little flourishes and those little nuances make a difference. That's what's always like trips me out about the music that you make, because, you know, the good punk rock and good pop punk music is like very deceptive in its simplicity. You know, like, well, it's 3 chords, but yeah, listen carefully to what's going on. Listen to those harmonies. Listen to those backing vocals. Consider, you know, how many times he repeated this part, and he didn't have to. You know what I mean? Like the arrangements that you come up with, I think, are really, really very concise and very. I don't know. You just seem to know where things ought to go, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's hard at times. Like the bridge for Punk Rock Girls. It's a song, but I was like, something was missing, and then I thought of I don't know where I'm going, but I know just where I'd like to be with my punk rock. So that chorus on that particular song too, originally on the demo that never came out, it was like the verses were different. It was like leather jacket, stupid from but I know. So I carried the vocals through, but I stopped that. And JJ, nobody heard the demo. He's like, dude, I want you to sing that part. So yeah, that might have been something I missed right there in Punk Rock Girls. But a lot of it comes down to like, yeah, the little bridge, a little catchy. Mrs. Brown, You've Got an Ugly Daughter. We did a little guitar solo, keyboard solo. I'll tell you a funny one about that one, man. We were still on tape in those days. And nobody could play the keyboard part. And it's really simple. It's not fast or anything. It's not like Yes prog rock, but nobody could play it. Dave tried it. And so we're all standing around, and because he played piano like when he was in 6th grade or something. So he tried it, and he did it after about the 4th time. He fucked it up, and he got up and he kicked the chair, and he goes, "Fucking chair." We're like, "Oh yeah, it's the chair, Dave." Yeah. But anyway, what we did was to do it. I played the keyboard solo, but we played the tape at half speed at 7.5 IPS. I think we're at 15 IPS, and we're recorded at 30. So it was like really slow. So we did it down an octave on the keyboard. So it was like boom, 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 boom. Yeah, we did it like that. But then playing back normal speed, it came out great.
That's funny.
It's kind of laughable to listen to it because it's so simple, but we could not do it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, I've come into that situation before with keyboards. You can't cheat as well on a keyboard as you can with a distorted guitar.
Exactly. Right.
But now there's plenty of ways to cheat these days, man. I mean, I've figured out every possible way to cheat with GarageBand on certain things, and it's funny because like, I don't know, rock and roll shouldn't be like something you cheat at, but when you want to finish a song or whatever, like you just got to do what you got to do.
And no, that's a good point. And you shouldn't have to cheat at it. You should be able to just do it. And then you look at albums like, for instance, ELO, the Time album. I don't know if you get into ELO. I love ELO. And so I don't think Pro Tools, they did all that on tape, which is just amazing. All those great ELO albums, El Dorado and fucking all that stuff was all done on tape. Mm-hmm. Time was their 1981 album. And I don't think if they had Pro Tools, the album would have been as good. Mm-hmm. Probably a lot of the great Beatles albums or Stones album wouldn't have been as good with Pro Tools. I think Pro Tools might have stayed in the way. Like it gives everybody a safety net, mm-hmm. and you get more and more away from that band creating that cool music. Like when I grew up on tape, you would play do the song and you look at each other and say, that was a good take. That's the keeper right there. Mm-hmm. And you don't get that anymore. Now it's like, Master Giorgini saying, oh, you get off on the click. Oh, you were right on the click. It's perfect. Good take, but it's so mechanical, and mm-hmm. it's almost like a math equation that a lot of the soul is out of it.
Yeah.
Which I miss. So I don't know. To me, I don't know. I love Pro Tools, but I use it in the studio. But people laugh at me because I use Pro Tools. I record almost like I'm on tape. People laugh, but that's how I do it, because the problem is a Pro Tools, mm-hmm. or any digital platform is that you don't make the decisions right there in the studio. I always try to, you'll get to the end of some of these projects, and you're like, well, now you've got 15 guitar solos to pick through on one song. Yeah. You've got a few takes to pick through on this. There's all these decisions, whereas on tape, dude, you had to just, say yes. Well, look at Alice Cooper Killer. Like mm-hmm. those guys, I think that was 2-inch 16 track. Mm-hmm. So in 71, I think it was. So they would bounce the drums down to like, I believe 4 tracks. And they were kind of stuck with that mix of the drums, and then free up other, listen to that album sometimes. I don't know if you ever listened to it, if you're into it, Alice Cooper.
I like Alice Cooper, yeah.
And love it to death. And in another album I talked to Joey about quite a bit that he loved. Mm-hmm. And and those guys had to play their instruments, man. It was great. Mm-hmm. Under My Wheels, Be My Lover. Listen to bass on Be My Lover. It's killer. Go back and listen to that when we're done, and just hear that. Oh, it's killer. It's so fucking catchy, the bass part. And it's all on tape. They had to know how to play their instruments. And all these early fucking metalhead guys, they were all on tape. They played their asses off. Let's face it, I mean, it was goofy stuff, not my cup of tea, but you had to fucking give them a nod and a tip of the cap to those guys, because they could really fucking play and pull it off on stage.
Yeah, for sure.
And, nowadays with Pro Tools, a lot of bands will come in and they treat it like a crutch. Instead of treating it like a Band-Aid that you have in case you need it, they, get it into the recording process, which I don't really go for. So,
yeah. Well, you said something just now, like about being in a room with other people and the vibe that you get. If you get a good take, it's like you feel that communication that's happening. That's the difference between being in a band and just like recording something yourself. You know what I mean? Because I do most of my stuff just me. So
right.
I almost forget what it's like to play with another group of people, because it's like you got to vibe off of each other. It's communication, and music ultimately is like communication. And you know, there's something magical about when brains are connected through that, you know, whatever.
Oh yeah, I mean, let's face it. I was telling someone about making the album, and I had a good time because I kind of like, you know, pretended I was working on a Joey solo album, and you know, with Joey and Daniel, what would they think of this stuff? And I kind of went with that thing to make it fun. But I mean, half of the recording process, it's fun just sitting around telling fart jokes and being with your friends. And you know what I mean? That's the whole thing, you know. And we're missing it this time. We had enough of it, but it was weird, like you say, being by yourself. Yeah, it's cool to a certain point, but I totally like to be with other people, and that's the world I came from, where you're like creating stuff and coming up with different ideas. And we had a lot of it on this album, in that I wrote the songs here, but we had never played. We don't really rehearse, so we had never rehearsed them. We never played them. I sent demos to the guys, so when we recorded the songs, they were all fresh. That's why we came back. We changed Shirley 3 times. On Fucking Kong, we did a couple of times on drum. We just didn't know, you know, it's hard to like figure out where a song's going. You got to listen to it and then go, oh shit, we should have done this. And so we had a lot of that stuff and came back. So I think some songs we recorded 4 or 5 separate times on drums till we finally got it and we're happy with it. But yeah, no denying. I mean, it's you know, you want to have people in the room with you and just have fun with the thing. And the best albums I've done are when you're sitting there laughing and having a good time. The ones where you're pulling teeth. I mean, I recorded bands and I see it when they're arguing and shit like that. Man, those albums never seem to come out as good.
Well, I hope you know this, man. Like, I think a lot of the reason you have so many fans is because your personality and the way you deal with people, whether you're touring, whether you're recording bands, or, you know, just shooting the shit, like you're a very approachable guy. And that makes a big difference, because music is about like community and stuff. And there's plenty of people who aren't that nice, you know, in person to talk to, and they're not super like receptive to people wanting to share things with them and stuff. But like, yeah, that's just part of who you are. But I think it's pretty remarkable, especially considering you've been doing this shit so long, just to be able to still, you know, be cool.
Another thing, I took the cue off. The most famous person I really knew was Joey Ramone, and I watched how those guys approach their fans, and I kind of took my cue from him, and I go, I'll meet these dildos from these West Coast bands. Again, I'm not naming names. They're a bunch of fucking pompous assholes. And I see how they operate with people, just doing interviews. They act like they're doing you a favor to do interviews and all that shit. And it's like, oh, come on. And Joey was never like that. He loved his fans, and he loved playing music. And I realized what got him out of bed in the morning was just, he loved talking about music and the next great song. We used to talk about all sorts of, you know, Acid Eaters. What songs did I think they could have done on Acid Eaters that I would have liked to see the Ramones do and shit like that? What did I think? And so it was cool for me to get insight on what he thought of it. He didn't like some of the songs really. Same with the solo album though. He was the one, you know, he came up and said, I need stronger songs. They're not strong enough. He goes, it'll sell. People tell me it's great and all that, but I know, you know, in my heart, I need stronger stuff. Along the lines of What a Wonderful World of Maria Bartiromo and a couple other ones. I don't listen to that album too much, but anyway, you got to be. You know, I like, it's a privilege to get to play music. Like, this is what I dreamt of doing, right? When I was in high school, I'm like, I want to be in a band and tour around the world and have friends. And, you know, that's all I want to do. That's what I want to go to Italy and see the Colosseum, and I want to travel because of my band. And so, geez, this is what I'm doing, what I dreamt of doing when I was in high school. You know, I was like, damn, man. And I've rubbed elbows with some of my heroes, the Ramones. You know, they were it for me. And And so you got to be gracious. But if you do this thing called music and you're a bigger jerk after getting to do this fun, great thing that we do called music and learn all these lessons of life and travel around and you do a job that people cheer and they want you to do, more and more. This doesn't happen when you flip burgers,
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
if you're a bigger jerk after doing music than you were before, then you haven't learned anything by the journey. And no matter what level you're at, Bob Dylan or the Queers, you got to learn, or whoever, you got to learn by the journey and ultimately be a better person than you were before. I've made some fucking mistakes, whatever. We all have. I'm human. We're all flawed beings. And but you got to be a better person. But I see a lot of people that were cool as fuck before they had any success in music. And now they're a bunch of pompous fucks. They're a bunch of assholes. And I go, God, you were the coolest dude. What happened, man?
Yeah.
But I got the cue off Joey. He'd call me in the morning and we'd talk for 2 hours, drinking coffee and just talk about songs. And I realized that it wasn't about how famous he was and, how much money he had in the bank or who he, whatever he did, girls he fucked, drugs he did. No, nothing. Music was what got him out of bed in the morning. And I go, that's who I want to be. I like to be like Joey. And by and large, in our own little way, the Queers, that's how there's always something to get out of bed for in the morning. I mean, I like the excitement of just getting plane tickets for the guys and Hoglog's coming in at this such and such a day. And we're getting together and there's this energy with the Queers and we get a lot of laughs and, it's a dream come true, really. So another thing I'll say, my friend, her boyfriend knew Keith Richards. He was a semi-famous musician. And anyway, my friend Jordan. So one day they lived in Soho in the city. So Friday afternoon, one summer, knocking the door, there's Keith Richards. He was at loose ends for the whole weekend. He came by and he hung out with my friend Jordan, her boyfriend Terry, and Keith Richards. They hung out, just the three of them, all weekend. Sent out for food, did drugs, whatever. Talk music. And I said, what was he like? And she said, besides the fact he was super funny, he was so into music. All they did was sit around and play guitars and talk about music. And he asked her what, she thought of this song. And he was so excited still about music. And that's how Joey was. After all the great stuff he did, he was still so excited about music. Something I don't think you could say about Johnny. Great. I shouldn't speak for him, but I never got the impression he was into music, not like Joey. Joey loved music.
Yeah.
And, but she said he was just so into music. It was great. It was funny. And they, stories and laugh and play guitars and all that stuff. And she goes, he was just so into music. The whole thing was about music. And it was so great after all the shit he's done. And so one story, so her boyfriend, Terry, older than me. And anyway, he told Keith this story that weekend. Terry and his brother grew up in like Kansas. And every summer back in those days, like the early 60s, the power would go out a lot during the summer from lightning and lightning storms. So when the power would go out, there was nothing to do. The family would have to go to bed. So him and his brother would sneak down to the record player. They'd turn the volume on full blast. They'd put Satisfaction 7-inch on with a needle. And so when the power would come on at 4 a.m, bah, 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 and the whole house would wake up and the dad would yell at him and shit. And she said Keith Richards loved that story. But
that's cool.
But anyway, I said, yeah, that's what I like to be. I appreciate what I've got. We're not as big as Green Day. I don't give a fuck. I appreciate what I got. And I love music, and being able to do it to me is a privilege. And I like it. And these pompous people, I just think they're insecure, and I just don't, whatever. That's their trip. I can't spend, waste energy on being pompous. I wish I could be a hipster.
Yeah.
I always look at some of these guys and go, damn, man, I just can't do it. But I take my cue off Joey and how the Ramones, all of them treated their fans. None of them, I knew all of them, and except Tommy. And they were not pompous, and they just loved playing music. And Joey was always that way right to the end. And I told his mom, I did see her once after he died, and I told her how much it meant to me, and the little lessons that I learned from him, just watching him carry himself backstage and shit. So it's a good lesson for a lot of people. But you know, that's how I am. I just like doing it. You know, it's not a job to me. It's exciting. We got a tour December 3rd through the 13th, and we're making t-shirts and, you know, working on songs here. And then we're talking to Cleopatra Records wants to sign us. And
Yeah.
so we're talking about doing a bookend album to Reverberation, our cover album that's selling really well.
Cool.
And we want to go back. This has been a dream of mine, and record some of our old poppy queer songs as if Phil Spector produced them at Gold Star Studio back when, like, end of the century. You know what I mean? Like, what would Phil Spector have done with Deborah Jean back in the day?
Yeah.
And so we're going through songs, and I think we're going to do it. And Cleopatra loves the idea as a bookend album to Reverberation. So cover our own songs, but kind of do it with a different take on it, with big production, and kind of like pretend we're trying to get a hit on the radio in the 1960s type thing.
Yeah.
Because Deborah Jean, let's face it, I love that song, or From Your Boy, but it was like one take, no click track. We were fucked up a lot of the time. You know, we just threw them away. You know what I mean? It was like, shit, dude. With Hugh O'Neill, you didn't worry about a click track, but you know what I'm saying? It was just like, I always knew off Dump Back Down. B-Face and Hugh hated the song. They did it once for the demo. They did it once at Big Sound for the album, and that was it. We never sunk our teeth into it and did anything with the production, really. It was just like, got it down where we, you know, started together and ended together, and that was it. So I want to take some of those songs, Sun Always Shines Around You. Anyway, that was the idea. We're not sure how we're going to promote it, but that's what we're working on, doing an album as if Phil Spector recorded, produced Deborah Jean and Sun Always Shines Around You. I think she's starting to like me. The production's good on that one, but I'd still like to go back and do it as if the Beach Boys did it for like Pet Sounds or something. So anyway, yeah, that's what we're trying to do. Cleopatra likes the idea. I will tell you one thing. We're going to probably record it out here at my studio, or our producer, Les Hall. A buddy of mine was in this band called Crossfade, if you know them. Crossfade, they got really big back in the day. He lives right nearby, and he's producing an ELO song for us right now, an outtake from their Time album, Julie Don't Live Here Anymore. Coming out killer, man. I'll send it to you, but don't play it for anybody. You won't believe it.
Yeah.
But anyway, Les is going to produce that album, and so we're hoping that the bookend, you know, it's the bookend to the Reverberation, and well, we'll see where it goes anyway. But I was just going to say, I'm just so excited about the whole thing. I guess that was my point. We were talking about just being excited about stuff, and so there's a million things going on, and so we, you know, we're working on that next, and then another studio album. So you know, there's a million good things going on. The tour coming up December 3rd to the 13th, I was going to mention. So there's always something to get out of bed for in the morning. And so we'll see what happens. But I'm really excited to go back and approach some of those songs, the early queer songs. And just, I always wondered what would have happened if Phil Spector had produced us, you know. And so, you know, when you're on, you know, we recorded Love Songs for the Retarded in 17 hours. So, so I'd like to take, you know, Deborah Jean at least, and go back and revisit that and see what we could do with it. So, so that's our next little project. So we'll see.
Well, I'm really pleased to hear, you know, that you just stay busy, and that's very inspirational to me too. I think it's important to have a reason to get out of bed and stay motivated and inspired. And you've definitely provided plenty of inspiration for me, and, you know, your fans and people who know you personally and or just are fans of your music. I think you've made a lot of great contributions, you know. So
yeah, it's been it sounds corny, but it's all because of the fans keep me going. And you know, it's on this last tour, say a Punk Rock Blowing especially, I had so many people come up to it. Man, you got us into our fucking, we couldn't get into the fucking Showcase Theater in fucking Corona back in 1994. Me and my buddy were 15, but you stuck us in through the men's room window, or you fucking said us, we're the backup singers or whatever. And like, I heard a million of those stories, you know. It was great seeing all these people and hearing these funny stories, man, from back in the day. But the band now, we are playing really, really good.
Mhm.
And we're at a different level than we were back in the day too. So we've really, really improved from the Lurch day, Dangerous Dave days. We really have gotten up to another level. So so I'm really excited about the band. We've been playing so long, but yet getting back to, you were saying, that's great to watch you play guitar, but I've been singing, and Ginger, we got Ginger, this kind of thrash dude, metal dude on guitar, swinging his hair around. And it's weird, but it's working, you know, and I'm able to sing better because I'm just lead vocals and not playing guitar.
Yeah.
And I miss it in some ways, but and some people think it's weird, but yet we're really doing the songs killer and working on being just better. We get it from going on tour with the Dickies, watching those guys every night. Here's a band that they're older than we are. And if you're sitting backstage listening to Dickies, you think you're listening to the album. I mean, that's how fucking good these guys are. And it has nothing to do with like playing fast. And so we've really learned a lot. So we always open up with the Dickies, and it's like a real challenge to hold your own with the Dickies. You can hold your own with the Dickies, you're doing something, my friend. We've done it a couple of times. They'll admit it. But, you know, we've learned from watching those guys, and we always look every night when we're driving away from the show. It's like, what could we have done better? What did we mess up? So we're really, it's never like stuff that's going to make you 100% better. It's going to be 2% better. But we always try to, like, you know, get a little bit better. And what could we have done better here and there? So we've got that going on with the band now. So, yeah, it's fun. I mean, we're working on, we're playing 2 nights in Chicago, so we're coming up with a completely different set for the second night in Chicago. Nice. So we're working on that thing. We're not going to play any songs, 2 different, complete different sets. We're not going to like repeat any songs the second night. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, we could pull it off. We got enough songs, but pull it off and like do a great set. That's where the whole secret is. But we'll do it. We'll do it. And it all comes down to the set list and how you fucking do those songs. Listen, I love Screeching Weasel. I've told Ben this. Mr. T Experience, I love fucking 2 of my favorite bands, but yet Frank, a lot of times on tour, MTX will just choose the songs that afternoon, what they're playing. And so it's a herky-jerky set. I love all the songs and all the fans do too, but as far as like a working set, it's not cohesive in some places, which Frank will tell you. And Ben's the same way. And I go, dude, you know, so we really work on like trying to make these sets that flow and like you build it up here and here and here. And so, and then, you know, the last end of the set, hit those home runs over the fence and all that stuff. So there's always stuff to work on, you know, and it's great to be in a band. And like, now that I'm singing, we're able to like work on stuff like that even more. Bang, 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 no talking like the Ramones, just going, you know, song to song. Dude, I'll tell you, man, we fucking played out there at Punk Rock Bowling and we fucking killed it, man. You know, it's all the same bands all the time. Descendants, they headlined the night we played. Great band, love them. I thought we did just as good. But a lot of those bands always play those things, but we hadn't played it ever before. We get up there and we just did our thing, you know, bang, bang, bang. But by the time we hit Love, 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 Cindy's on Methadone, KKK Took My Baby Away, Fuck the World, This Place Sucks, and Punk Rock Girls, we ended with that. It was like, dude, I had the crowd in the palm of our hands right there. Dude, we killed it. They wanted to hear that Look At Records, that good, catchy shit, and we fucking brought it, man. And we fucking, oh, it was great, dude. It was fucking, I get goosebumps thinking about it. It was fucking fun, man. We killed it. I was really proud of the band. And so it's always a challenge too. You know, we didn't headline that fucking thing. You know, we played Anti-Flag, played Dwarves before us, then Anti-Flag after us, and then the Descendants, I guess it was. And so we've more than held our own, man. We fucking slayed them, dude. So it was great because a lot of those people, they all know us, but they hadn't seen us in a long time because we don't, you know, we don't play all those festivals and shit out there. So anyway, it's always something, like you said, get out of bed for in the morning and always trying to get better. And so, yeah, shit I dreamt of doing. And when I was in high school, and you got to be grateful. And so that's how I approach music, you know. But I take my cue from Joey and watching how he operated. That's where I go, I'm going to be like him. Not going to waste time on being an asshole. I'm just going to fucking let that shit fucking do its own thing. Those people can do what they want. I'm just going to be grateful for fucking playing music and try to make that next great song, So yeah, it's pretty fucking cool talking to him and just seeing his philosophy towards music. So that's where I get a lot of mine.
Well, man, thank you for sharing your time with me, and all these stories have been really cool, and just hearing your enthusiasm and everything, it really energizes me, man. So it's cool for me, and I hope you enjoyed it,
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sending those little songs you write over there, Mr. Grim Deeds. And yeah, it's always fun. Maybe someday we can work on a song.
Sure.
I think the thing is with pop punk is that a lot of it is called great and it's not great. It's good, but it's not great. It's that background vocal. It's hard to make a great song. It's easy to make a good one, but it's hard to make a great one. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about. You're a songwriter. And so that's where the whole little trick comes in. And Joey told me this too. Always be your own worst critic. He goes, I don't need to read the New York Times to know if I wrote a good song or not, or a good album. I don't care what they think about it. I know if I got a good album or not. Mm-hmm. So I always kept that, be your own worst critic. I always, don't believe your own bullshit. I always try to live by that too. So and you got to be serious about it. But there's guys like Kim and Ben Weasel and Dr. Frank that it just seems effortless because all those guys, every fucking thing they write is like they hit it out of the park, Mm-hmm. And I go, man, I'm telling you, it's fucking great. I mean, I think Eyes in the Back of My Head or whatever it is, Eyes in the Back, off the new Weasel album, the last Weasel album, I think that's as good as anything Ben's written. That is a fucking great song.
Yeah.
So I consider myself lucky that I get to pick up the phone and I can talk to Ben and just, you got friends like that. Or Joey was such a big influence too. Yeah. And, Richie got up, we played the Whiskey with the Dickies there a few weeks ago, and Richie got up, he played drums with us on a couple songs. So I was like, hey man, that afternoon we stopped at Cleopatra Records and they're talking to us about signing us and putting out our back catalog and keeping it all in print and then doing our next album. And I go, man, this is a dream come true, man. Fucking great. I got a big label after us and we're playing with the Dickies. And oh, dude, if you would have told me that I would be friends with the Dickies and play shows with them back in when I first got the Gigantor 7-inch juice, I remember we're living in a squat in New York City at the time. And my roommate at the time, Michael, came back with a Gigantor 7-inch. He's like, check this out, the Dickies Gigantor. And I was like, God, if you had told me I would be friends with them, I mean, I wouldn't have believed it. So it's you got to be grateful, I think, in this business. But one of these days, we should write a song together.
Oh, that'd be fun, man. I'd love it. Well, you and I stay in touch pretty well. I think we'll have some opportunity at some point, and I'll always, share what I'm doing and stuff. Because
if you got this song that's like 3/4 there, and you need that one little part, or vice versa, let's trade some of those things. Yeah, I had this song on our new album, "Leave That Girl Alone." I was in that. I would have sent it to you. I didn't think of you. I was like, I sent it to a couple of guys, Joe from the Young Rochelle's. Mm-hmm. And then a couple other people, and finally my buddy Ben Vermin from Cleveland. He played bass with us in the band The Vermin. Anyway, he came up with a verse, and so that was it. I had the rest of the song all written, but he came up with a verse and made it work, and the keyboard idea and stuff. So if you got stuff like that, throw it at me. I'd love to hear it. And
I got
let's just keep in touch.
I got a whole bunch of voice memos here with different ideas and stuff. I'll share something with you before too long. And,
dude, we came up with Cheeto and a Speedo eating a burrito. Hoglot kept saying that in the van on tour. It was one of those on tour things. Cheeto and a Speedo eating a burrito. So one afternoon we came up with a chorus anyway, and I said, Cheeto, record this, and don't lose it. Oh, I got it. Well, the dumbass lost it, and then I was sitting here, and it was driving me crazy, and I thought of it. And I thought of the thing where the other way we did the chorus at the end of the song for the Ooga Ooga part anyway. So I love that. I do that all the time. We're coming here in the studio, and I've just got 45 minutes of just little snippets of song ideas or chords and stuff.
Yeah.
And stuff from the last album I got to go through and wade through. And it's funny, you know, I'll go back and go, oh, 15 ideas. And then all of a sudden that was Hong fucking Kong. And it was like, wow, that came out great. And I had a bunch of other stuff and I never worked on it much. So,
yeah.
You know,
well, you always got to be ready for the lightning to strike, you know. Just
yeah. It's funny how that stuff works out. But yeah, you know, you got to love it, I guess. So anyway, yeah, well, good talking to you.
Yeah,
Mr.
man.
Deeds.